The Galactic Council was a vast assembly of diverse species, each with its own culture, history, and ambitions. At the heart of this interstellar governance stood the idea of hierarchy, a system where species were ranked according to their power, intelligence, and influence. Humans, despite their rising numbers across the galaxy, were considered little more than novelties. Most races viewed them as primitive and undeveloped, a species that had yet to earn a true place at the table of galactic politics. The Council's meetings were often tense affairs, marked by debates over trade routes, military alliances, and the preservation of power. Most species viewed their involvement with Earth and its people as more of an experiment than anything else. Humans were often seen as little more than pawns in the larger galactic chess game. It was on the planet Hyria, the headquarters of the Galactic Council, that the fate of Jack Mason, a human astronaut recently appointed to a diplomatic post, would be decided. Hyria was renowned not only for its political significance but also for its gladiatorial arenas, where species from across the galaxy would compete in brutal, often life-ending battles. The Voran, an apex predator species known for its primal strength, carnivorous nature, and intelligence, were the stars of these events. They had long been revered and feared, not just for their unparalleled combat abilities, but for their unpredictable temperaments and vicious nature. The Voran had long defied all attempts at domestication. Efforts to tame the species had been made by many, with every faction in the galaxy eager to unlock the secret of controlling the beasts. But time and again, they failed. The Voran could not be tamed. Their strength and savagery made them an enigma, a living symbol of the galaxy's most untouchable wild power. For Jack Mason, who had recently been appointed as Earth's representative to the Galactic Council, the visit to Hyria was meant to be a formality. His role was largely symbolic. Humans were not expected to have much of a voice in the grand decisions of the galaxy. But Jack, with his natural curiosity and eagerness to prove humanity's worth, was more than ready to dive into the complexities of intergalactic politics. Little did he know, this visit would mark the beginning of his unexpected rise to power. The summit on Hyria was an extraordinary gathering. Representatives from nearly every major species in the galaxy were in attendance. The atmosphere was tense, the galaxy was in the midst of a political crisis. Power struggles were brewing between the larger factions, with certain races demanding more autonomy, while others sought to expand their influence. But amid the political chaos, the Voran's role loomed over the proceedings. Their existence, and their sheer power, were both a symbol and a point of contention for many factions. During a break in the summit, Jack and his fellow diplomats were given a tour of the planet's gladiatorial facilities. The tour was a chance for them to witness firsthand the legacy of the Voran and the brutality of the games. As they walked through the expansive grounds, their guide led them to a massive, reinforced containment area. It was here that the Council kept the most dangerous of the Voran, a particularly aggressive specimen known simply as Voran 15. This creature had long been observed for its violent tendencies, its history steeped in bloodshed and destruction. The containment unit was a marvel of alien technology, designed to keep the Voran subdued and under control. It was equipped with energy barriers and traps meant to immobilize the beast in case it broke free. The Voran was kept in isolation for fear of its instability. Despite these precautions, there was always a sense of looming danger whenever anyone ventured near the creature. As Jack and the other ambassadors stood observing the creature from a safe distance, the unthinkable happened. An alarm sounded. A surge of energy rippled through the containment field. Jack barely had time to register what was happening before the Voran 15 roared, a sound that shook the very ground beneath them. The creature, furious and wild, broke free from its containment, sending the security personnel into a frenzy. The scene erupted into chaos. Panic spread quickly among the diplomats as the Voran 15, now loose, rampaged through the arena, tearing through everything in its path. The alien guards, who had once seemed so confident in their ability to control the beast, scrambled desperately to regain control. It was clear they were powerless to stop the creature's fury. Amid the panic, Jack Mason remained calm. He had spent much of his life working with aggressive animals on Earth, wildlife and rescue missions that required patience and understanding. He recognized the signs of stress in the Voron 15's behavior, and his instincts told him that this was no mindless beast seeking destruction, but a creature that was reacting to fear and confinement. While everyone else fled in terror, Jack took a deep breath and approached the Voron 15. He didn't reach for any weapon. He didn't try to subdue the creature with force. Instead, Jack stepped forward, extending his hand slowly toward the beast. His voice was steady, calm. He spoke not with authority, but with empathy, trying to convey to the creature that he meant no harm. The Voron 15, though initially agitated, paused. For a moment, it seemed to hesitate. The alien guards watched in horror, certain that Jack was about to be torn apart. But Jack's steady demeanor and calm energy made a difference. The Voron 15 sniffed his hand, cautiously. It was as though it was considering this strange, fragile creature before it. In an unprecedented moment, the Voron 15 lowered its massive head, nudging against Jack's hand as if seeking reassurance. The beast, known for its bloodthirsty nature, was not attacking, but instead responding to Jack's gentle touch. It was as though, in that brief moment, the primal nature of the Voron 15 had been quelled. The scene was nothing short of miraculous. The ambassadors stood frozen, staring in disbelief. The Voron, an apex predator that no one had ever dared to tame, had just calmed at the touch of a human. The Galactic Council, a body built on the belief that humans were inferior and unworthy of influence, was stunned into silence. How could this human, this so-called primitive species, achieve what no one else could? Jack, unaware of the significance of his actions, stood in front of the Voron 15, gently petting the creature. The chaos around him seemed to fade as he focused entirely on the beast, offering nothing more than his presence and calm energy. The Voron 15 responded to him, no longer a mindless killer, but a creature that had found peace in the presence of a human. The diplomatic representatives were left speechless. The Zorvian Council, known for their militaristic nature and disdain for any species they deemed weaker, watched with a growing unease. This single act, simple yet profound, would set in motion a chain of events that would change the galaxy forever. Jack had done the unthinkable, he had tamed the untamable. And in doing so, he had unknowingly placed humanity on the brink of something far greater than anyone could have imagined. The moment Jack Mason had calmed the Voron 15, the chaotic energy of the room shifted. The creature, once an uncontrollable force of nature, now sat quietly before Jack, its massive head lowered in a gesture of submission. The surrounding ambassadors, once frozen in shock, slowly began to stir. Some whispered nervously among themselves, while others stood wide-eyed, staring at the human who had achieved what no species, human or otherwise, had ever managed before. The Galactic Council representatives had always held a hierarchical view of the galaxy, and humans were firmly positioned at the bottom. For centuries, humans had been regarded as little more than an experiment, a species whose presence in the galaxy had been tolerated but never respected. Their rapid expansion had been seen as a curiosity, but their lack of true diplomatic influence had kept them in the shadows of the great powers of the galaxy. To see a human, not even a seasoned diplomat but an astronaut, tame the Voron 15 with such ease was a shock to the very foundation of the Council's beliefs. The room grew tense as a murmur spread through the assembled representatives. Some saw it as a sign of hope, a possibility that humanity could offer something unique to the galaxy. Others, particularly the Zorvian Council, known for their warrior culture and aggressive stance, saw it as a challenge, an affront to their own understanding of power dynamics. The Voron, after all, were their greatest prize, and the thought that a human could control such a beast sent ripples of anxiety through their ranks. The immediate aftermath of the incident saw Jack removed from the scene by security personnel, though not before the creature, once docile, seemed reluctant to leave his side. Its glowing yellow eyes never once left Jack as he was escorted away. The guards, perplexed and unwilling to confront what had just occurred, followed his every step. Jack himself, still processing what had just transpired, was aware that things had already begun to shift around him. He had achieved the impossible, but at what cost? It didn't take long for the political ramifications of his actions to surface. In the days following the incident, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. The debate was fierce, a swirling mix of awe, fear, and intrigue. Some council members argued that Jack's interaction with the Voron 15 was a fluke, an anomaly that could be dismissed. After all, the Voron had a complex biology, and it was entirely possible that Jack had simply gotten lucky. Others, however, saw something more. They saw potential. For the first time in centuries, humanity might have something that could be used to tip the scales of galactic power. The most vocal opponents of this new reality were the Zorvian Council, who voiced their deep concerns about the implications of Jack's actions. The Zorvians, a race of fiercely proud and warlike beings, had spent generations training, controlling, and respecting the Voron. For them, the relationship between their species and the Voron was a matter of tradition and honor. The idea that a lesser species could bond with these apex predators was not only insulting but dangerous. They feared that Jack's newfound connection with the Voron 15 could spark an uprising of other species who sought to challenge the established order. On the other hand, factions within the Council, those who had always been more sympathetic to human involvement in galactic affairs, saw Jack's unique bond with the Voron 15 as an opportunity. If humanity had the ability to tame such creatures, it could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. The implications for diplomacy, for warfare, and for galactic unity were staggering. The Voron were no longer untouchable symbols of raw, uncontrollable power. They could be managed, controlled, and perhaps even utilized as part of a broader galactic strategy. But the true impact of Jack's actions was only beginning to reveal itself. As the Council continued to debate, Jack found himself at the center of a political storm. He had been thrust into the spotlight, the subject of countless discussions and rumors. His once humble position as a representative of Earth had suddenly turned into a key to untapped galactic power. While some hailed him as a hero, others saw him as a threat to the established order. Jack had always been a man of action, but this was a new kind of battle. He was no longer navigating the dangers of space, nor was he dealing with hostile aliens on distant planets. Now, he was facing the intricacies of diplomacy, of navigating the shifting alliances of the galaxy, and of understanding the complex web of politics that governed the Galactic Council. In the days that followed the incident, Jack was summoned by the highest-ranking officials within the Council for a private meeting. The Council's Chancellor, a being known for its calculating intelligence and cold demeanor, was one of the first to reach out to him. The Chancellor, a representative of the Ulvans, an ancient and wise species with a reputation for shrewd diplomacy, was not one to show emotion, but Jack could sense the underlying tension in the room as he sat across from the alien. The Chancellor wasted no time. "Jack Mason," the Chancellor began, their voice even and composed, "you have accomplished something none of us believed possible. You have tamed a Voron. A creature that has defied all efforts at control for centuries." The Chancellor paused, letting the words sink in. "But we must ask, why? Why did you approach it? What do you seek to achieve?" Jack, though overwhelmed by the events, maintained his composure. He had no grand ambitions or plans for power. He had merely reacted in the moment, doing what he thought was right. "I didn't do anything special," he said honestly. I know how to handle animals. I didn't want to fight the creature. I wanted to understand it." The Chancellor studied him for a long moment before speaking again. "You may have tamed the Voron 15, but what you don't understand is that you've changed the very nature of the game. This is no longer just about diplomacy. This is about power." The Chancellor's tone grew more serious. "Some races will want to use this. Others will want to destroy you." Jack's mind raced. He had become a symbol, both of hope and fear. Some saw his bond with the Voron as a potential to unite the galaxy, while others saw it as a threat to their authority. But he still didn't fully understand the implications of his actions. Was he really the one who had caused the shift, or was there something greater at play? And what would the Voron 15 reveal next? As the meeting concluded, Jack left with a heavy heart, knowing that his actions had set events into motion that could have galaxy-wide consequences. The creature's connection to him wasn't just about taming it, it was about something far deeper, something that had yet to reveal itself. And with that, Jack realized that his role in the galaxy had just begun, but the true nature of his bond with the Voran 15 was still to be discovered. The weeks following Jack's interaction with the Voran 15 were filled with an uneasy mix of curiosity, fear, and political maneuvering. Jack had been placed under the watchful eye of several galactic factions, each seeking to understand the significance of his bond with the creature. But despite the mounting interest, Jack had yet to fully comprehend the magnitude of what had transpired. The Voran 15, once a symbol of primal fear and uncontrollable violence, now seemed to accept his presence with an almost familial devotion. Yet, its behavior was more than just a simple act of submission. There was something deeper at play, something neither Jack nor the Council could yet explain. As Jack spent more time with the Voran, he began to sense that the creature was trying to communicate with him in ways that defied logic. It wasn't simply the creature's physical gestures, its lowered head, its slow, deliberate movements, but something else. A presence, an intelligence, that seemed to resonate just beneath the surface. The Voran 15 would nudge Jack with its head, not out of affection, but as if trying to convey a deeper meaning, a message that Jack couldn't yet interpret. The Voran 15 was more than just an apex predator, it was a living repository of ancient knowledge, and Jack was beginning to realize that the bond they shared had unlocked something much greater than he had imagined. The creature began to show Jack glimpses of its past, visions that were fragmented but powerful. The most unsettling of these visions came in the form of cryptic symbols, a language Jack couldn't understand but could sense. Each vision seemed to hint at a forgotten history, one that tied the Voran to a long-lost civilization, a civilization that had once wielded power over the galaxy. But how could Jack interpret this knowledge, and what did it mean for his future? Meanwhile, the Galactic Council continued its political chess game, each faction positioning itself in response to Jack's newfound influence. The Zorvians, still reeling from the implications of what had happened, were growing more vocal in their concerns. They believed that the Voran 15's connection to Jack was not merely a freak occurrence, but a deliberate shift in the balance of power. If humans could tame the Voran, what else could they do? Could they control other apex predators, creatures that were feared and revered across the galaxy? The Zorvian Council's leader, Karen, called for an emergency summit. His rhetoric had grown more inflammatory, warning that the rise of humanity as a power in the galaxy could lead to the collapse of the established order. In his eyes, Jack was a threat, a human who had not only defied the natural order of things but had also unlocked the Voran's hidden power. Karen's message was clear: the Council needed to act before humanity became too powerful to control. The Ulvans, on the other hand, were more cautious. They saw the potential of Jack's bond with the Voran 15 as an opportunity to broker new alliances, even if it meant taking a risk. The Ulvans had always been known for their strategic mindset, and many of their diplomats viewed Jack as a potential asset. If they could harness the connection between Jack and the Voran, it might be the key to solving long-standing conflicts between galactic factions. They were not foolish enough to underestimate the risks, but they were willing to explore what could be gained from humanity's newfound power. Jack's role in the Council became increasingly complicated. He had not sought power, nor had he intended to upend the galactic order. But now, he was caught in a web of political intrigue, with factions vying for control over his relationship with the Voran 15. Every conversation, every decision, seemed to be weighed with implications that went far beyond his own understanding. The more Jack learned about the Voran 15's past, the more he realized how little he truly knew. It was during one of these moments of contemplation that Jack received a visit from a representative of the Zorvian Council, a being named Azrak, one of their most trusted diplomats. Azrak was not like Karen, he was pragmatic, calculating, and open to negotiation. But even Azrak, for all his diplomacy, could not hide the underlying distrust in his eyes when he addressed Jack. The Voran 15 is not just a creature, Azrak said, his voice measured but firm. It is a symbol. A weapon. A force of nature that cannot be controlled by just any being. He paused, studying Jack closely. You have done something remarkable, Mason. But you must understand that what you have done is seen by many as an affront. You have broken the laws of nature. Jack, ever the diplomat in his own right, met Azrak's gaze. "I didn't break any laws," he replied. "I simply reacted to a situation. The Voron 15 wasn't just an animal, it was in distress, and I did what I could to calm it. I never sought control." Azrak's eyes narrowed. "Control is not just about force, Mason. It's about influence. Power. And that is what the Voron 15 represents. If the wrong people learn of your connection to it, it will not just be your life in danger, it will be the stability of the entire galaxy." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. He had known there were risks, but the weight of Azrak's words brought a new level of urgency to the situation. He had unwittingly become a key figure in a galactic power struggle, and the stakes were much higher than he had anticipated. As Azrak left, Jack was left to contemplate the implications of what had transpired. The Voron 15's bond with him had opened doors, both to knowledge and to danger. The creature was no longer just a predator, it was an ancient entity, one that held the key to a forgotten history and possibly the future of the galaxy. But who could he trust? The Council, divided as it was, seemed more interested in using him as a pawn than in understanding the true significance of his bond with the creature. And if the Voron 15's visions were correct, if it truly held the secrets of an ancient civilization, then Jack's role was far from over. The real question now was whether humanity, whether he himself, was ready for the truth that would soon be revealed. The power that had been unlocked through his connection with the Voron 15 was something none of them could fully understand. But one thing was certain, it would change everything. And if Jack was to navigate the coming storm, he would need to find allies who understood that the future of the galaxy didn't lie in dominance or control, but in the untapped wisdom that humanity, and the Voron 15, could offer. But would he be able to unite a galaxy on the brink of war, or would the fear of humanity's newfound power tear it apart? The answer was not yet clear, but Jack knew one thing for sure: whatever came next, he was no longer just an astronaut. He was now a pivotal force in the fate of the galaxy. The tension in the Galactic Council chambers had reached a boiling point. After weeks of growing unrest, Jack Mason found himself at the center of a storm he could barely comprehend. News of his bond with the Voron 15 had spread like wildfire, and factions that had once overlooked humans were now scrambling to understand the implications. For some, the notion of a human taming an apex predator like the Voron was not only baffling but dangerous. For others, it was a symbol of untapped potential, an opportunity to reshape the galaxy's power structure. But whatever the interpretation, one thing was certain: Jack was no longer just a witness to galactic diplomacy, he was its most unpredictable variable. The Zorvians, led by Karen, had grown increasingly vocal in their opposition. Their belief that Jack's influence over the Voron 15 could upset the natural order had become a rallying cry for those who sought to maintain the status quo. Karen, once a shrewd diplomat, now appeared consumed by a sense of urgency. He was determined to prevent humanity from gaining too much power. His fear wasn't just about the Voron 15, it was about what other creatures humans might be able to tame or influence, and how that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. "We cannot allow this anomaly to continue unchecked," Karen had declared at the last council meeting. A human, no matter how exceptional, should not be able to control one of the galaxy's most feared predators. "This is an affront to everything we have worked for, and it must be stopped." His words had sent shockwaves through the council. For many, Karen's stance was the final word on the matter. But there were others, particularly the Ulvans, who saw Jack's actions in a different light. Azrak, the Ulvan diplomat, had argued that this unexpected bond between human and predator could be the key to overcoming centuries of conflict between species. "What we are seeing here is not the subjugation of the Voron 15, Azrak had reasoned, but a partnership, one that could symbolize peace in a galaxy rife with division." The Zorvians, however, were not easily swayed. As their objections grew louder, Jack found himself caught in the middle of a political tug-of-war. He had never asked for this level of attention, nor had he ever considered the implications of his actions. He had simply done what he believed was necessary to survive in a dangerous situation. But now, that simple act of petting the Voron had set off a chain of events that could reshape the galaxy's future. The situation came to a head when Karen and his allies in the council demanded a full investigation into Jack's connection with the Voron 15. They questioned whether the bond between them was truly one of mutual respect or whether Jack had somehow manipulated the creature. Their suspicions were fueled by fear of humanity's potential, and the fear of what would happen if Jack could indeed unlock the full power of the Voron species. As the investigation unfolded, Jack found himself under increasing scrutiny. He was no longer just an ambassador, he was a subject of inquiry. And the more the council members probed into his relationship with the Voron 15, the more he began to question the true nature of their bond. It wasn't just about calming the creature or gaining its trust, it was something deeper. Something that, perhaps, even the Voron 15 itself didn't fully understand. It was during one of these interrogations that the first real breakthrough occurred. Jack was sitting with Azrak, attempting to answer questions about his connection to the Voron 15 when something unexpected happened. The creature, which had been housed in a separate containment area for its safety, suddenly appeared at the chamber doors. No one had summoned it, and yet it had come of its own accord, its massive form looming in the doorway, its golden eyes fixated on Jack. The room fell silent. Even Karen, who had been relentless in his criticisms of Jack, seemed momentarily taken aback. The Voron 15, which had once been a symbol of violence and destruction, now stood before them, a silent, powerful presence. It wasn't attacking. It wasn't growling or showing signs of aggression. It was simply there, watching, as if waiting for something. Jack stood up slowly, unsure of what to do. The creature's gaze met his, and in that moment, he felt a strange sense of connection. It wasn't just the bond of predator and prey. It was something more. Something transcendent. And without thinking, Jack took a step forward, extending his hand toward the creature. The council gasped, a mix of fear and awe evident in their eyes. Karen's face darkened. "Mason, stop. What are you doing?" But Jack didn't stop. He couldn't. The bond between him and the Voron 15 was undeniable, and in that moment, he felt as though he had no choice but to honor it. His hand hovered just above the creature's head, and for the first time, the Voron 15 lowered its massive body, allowing Jack to gently stroke its fur. The room was still, the silence deafening, as if the galaxy itself held its breath. Then, the unexpected happened. The Voron 15 let out a low, rumbling sound, almost like a purr. It wasn't a noise anyone in the room had expected to hear. The creature, once a harbinger of fear and destruction, was now displaying an almost affectionate gesture toward Jack. The council members, stunned into silence, could only watch as the Voron 15 pressed its massive head against Jack's chest, seeking his touch. Karen was the first to speak, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. "This is a mockery. You've tamed the beast, Mason. You've made it a pet." He spat the words as though they were an insult, but there was something else in his eyes, something Jack had not seen before. Fear. For the first time, Jack understood the true weight of what had transpired. The Voron 15 was not simply a creature of brute strength and violence. It was an intelligent being, capable of emotional depth. And somehow, Jack had unlocked that side of it. But it wasn't just the creature's transformation that had shaken the council, it was what it represented. If Jack could bond with the Voron 15, what other power did humanity possess? What other apex predators could be tamed? As the room erupted into chaos, Jack realized that the Voron 15 was not just an ally, it was a symbol. A symbol of humanity's untapped potential. And that potential was something the galaxy could either embrace or fear. He knew that the council would never see things the same way again. The balance of power had shifted, and it was unclear whether Jack and his newfound companion would be able to navigate the consequences. The galaxy, for all its vastness and complexity, was now looking at humanity with new eyes. And Jack Mason, once just a simple astronaut, had become the catalyst for a revolution that could either unite or divide the stars. The Voron 15 had shown him the path, but it was unclear where it would lead. As the debate raged on, Jack stood with the Voron 15 at his side, ready for whatever came next. He knew the road ahead would be perilous, filled with danger and uncertainty. But for the first time since arriving in the galaxy, Jack felt certain of one thing: humanity's place among the stars had just been rewritten. And it was up to him to decide how that story would unfold.